Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome in here to the K-State Insiders. No Cole Carmody today. Isn't this sad, guys?
I know. I mean,
we're going to do without him.
He has to work.
Yeah, his 9 to 5. We had this talk the other day. Does he really have a 9 to 5? I don't think he does.
No, school teaching isn't 9 to 5. It's either better than that or worse than that. And he's in baseball season, so it's worse than that. Mm-hmm. It's now like a 7:30 to 7:30.
This is why I chose journalism, man.
Oh, no doubt.
Up in this morning, wrote an article. Here we are.
Yep.
Living the life. I'm Ryan Gilbert. Big B in the middle. Fitz is demoting his own hosting duties today. So you're left.
I didn't
with
want to
Gilbert.
host. I don't know.
Here I am.
Yep. So you get to drive this thing wherever you want to, but I did give you instructions on where we need to start.
We are starting with spring football. I've got the list. It's pulled up here in front of me. I forget what we have on Wednesday, but over the next month or so, Fitz, we've got a lot of stuff. We got open practices, interviews with coaches, players. You probably missed the email, didn't you?
I have not seen it. I knew we had a press conference on Wednesday.
Okay.
Because I texted about that. I was concerned. I want football. I need football. I want it.
You need football?
I need it, man. I need it.
Uh-oh.
I'm jonesing.
Trying to find this email. Anyways, this is off to a great start.
Yeah, you're really good at this.
Can we get a new host, please?
Yeah, bad.
Hey, we can switch positions. This is what happens when Cole is not a part of this show. Let's start with Woodson leaving to Ole Miss. I mean, that's not something you see every day, Fitz.
No, home is home.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him for it. And I kind of awkward, but my gut is there's more to this than just going for a job. It seems like there's something going on with how he tweeted about praying with Collin Klein about stuff. So it seems like there's a bigger story here that we don't get to know, but that's fine. I'd much rather have it done now than right before the season. So I'll go coach corners for the spring. Coach Klein, I know you're watching. I got it, man. I got it.
Yeah. What was it? Tony Bennett right before the season. Auburn. Did Bruce Pearl do it?
Virginia.
Kind of too late.
Yeah.
And Bruce Pearl at Auburn, both of them.
If you're going to do it, man, just do it now. I respect that part of it.
Yep. No, that's fine. And they got time to go find someone. And he was one of the more veteran coaches on the staff, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how Collin responds to that. Does he go find someone of equal experience or go really young there? I have a feeling he might go young.
Well, how much do you have to replace, though? There's about 12 defensive backs coaches on this team, right?
It's actually 13.
Does everybody else just kind of step up a little bit?
It's a good question. Honestly, I'm not sure who their analyst is on the back end right now. That'd probably been good to know. And I'm sure they'll handle some of that. But, Jeremiah Johnson's also a defensive backs coach. He was in charge of safeties. Maybe he switches over to corner. Someone comes in for safety. They have some options there, including me coaching the corners. I think you missed that. I will take over. We're all good. We're fine. It's going to be great. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah.
I've got this.
You mentioned Jeremiah. You did a Fighting Ever Fighting. Was it 2 weeks ago with him?
Yeah, he was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, how's that?
He was good. He's good. He's kind of low-keyed. He's older than he looks. He was
just
not
like
a Civil War general. Though.
You're older than you look.
I am. I'm actually 93 years old, and I only look like I'm 70. No, I enjoyed him a lot, and we took a break from the football coaches this past week because of this spring break thing that the coaches took advantage of because they've been going pretty hard for the first 2 months, and we had Casey Alexander on that, and people seem to like that. I don't know who we're going to have this week. I better check on that, Gills. Thanks for reminding me.
There you go. That's why you keep me around.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure to send a text to Lackey.
Yeah.
Wednesday, 1:00 is Collin Klein. We'll talk to him, and then Thursday, the next day, the 26th, is their first day of spring practice.
Right.
We're not allowed to go to that one, Fitz, but we get to go on the 31st at 8:20 a.m. I'm sure you're going to be there.
Oh, they practice that early? I won't be available for coaching.
Yep.
I won't be able to
tune in. You'll get the sights and sounds right here on this YouTube channel.
So yeah, I don't do mornings. Just my style. But no, I'm excited to get spring football going. Well, number one, I got to stop talking about some of the basketball topics we've talked about. I want to move on. It's hard to move on when you don't have a lot of stuff on your plate. I don't know if you noticed this, K-State didn't make the NCAA tournament. And so
I noticed it based off of my weekend watching all the basketball.
Yeah. So we watched the games. Big B, of course, is monitoring them very closely because of the Big 12 Insiders channel. But we have had kind of a lack of things to discuss. So I'm excited to have spring football going. And honestly, it is starting this week, but we don't know anything more today than we did 2 weeks ago, maybe, other than the woods and stuff. So we'll kick it around a little bit today and see what pops up, and maybe some comments here.
Yeah.
To see what people want to hear from us.
Give us your money. Give us your super chats. That's their way to guarantee your comment on the screen, right?
Do you think Big B's mic's on, or do you think he's just going to watch us?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, that's good.
I'm here. I'm just listening.
Big B, what would your reaction be to an 8:20 a.m. practice? I mean, that's super late in Bill Snyder's time, isn't it?
I mean, well, no, not to practice. I mean, spring practice, it was just like regular season. So it was only on Saturdays that we had practice like that when I was there. But I mean, I would have hated it. I can tell you that right now, because the simple fact, during the spring, you can go out during the week and you can gut yourself through a spring practice after going out. You can't really do that during the season. And now he's cutting into our going out time. You can't go out and then have practice at 8:00 in the morning, which is literally why he made the scrimmages on Saturday morning so early, because he knew that you can't go out and get through a Bill Snyder scrimmage that starts at 8:00 in the morning. You're not going to be able to do that. So, Coach Snyder's a smart guy. I mean, so for me, I would have hated it getting up that early. Or you get it done and you get it over with, the practice and all that stuff, and you have the rest of the day. But I don't know. For me, I'd like the afternoon. You get your day started, you get through class, all that stuff, and then you go to practice meetings and weight lift and all that stuff afterwards. I just like that routine better.
Fitz, I would never make it to class. I'm too tired to go to class now. Yeah, I did that without.
It would have been tough.
By the way, I didn't have football practice in the morning, and I still woke up too tired to go to class.
They're all online. They can't just do class in bed.
I know. Back then, we didn't have online education. We had telegraph. We could get an education via telegraph, but I didn't have a line. So
I don't know if they're doing like it's a normal class, but you just like sit in online, or if you just do all your work on your own time and there's no hours. I'm not sure how that works, but one thing we do know is a lot of these dudes, and this was more, I guess, of a basketball thing than a football thing, but a lot of these dudes don't go to class because their classes are online.
Which, as I've said, I think is a big problem.
We had Jacob Bowen on our show.
Yeah, I understand.
No one couldn't believe it.
It's necessity for, it does help, particularly if Friday's online, because you're going to miss that a lot. But you can't dismiss the connection to the campus and the student body and professors and being part of the community. That's part of the experience. I'm gravely opposed to 100% online classes, or even 50. Get on campus.
Yeah.
That's who you're playing for. You're not playing for yourself. You're playing for those people, the donors, the purple, the whole thing. Get to know them.
Yeah, that to me, that was the fun part, walking around. Not that you wanted to be a big shot or anything like that. You just wanted to walk around campus. One of the joys for me about going to a school the size of Kansas State, not that Kansas State is, Ohio State or something like that as far as enrollment, is just I wanted to be on campus at a school where there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
That were just people around and walking around. I mean, for one, my first year, I went to Xavier. I mean, there were like 3,000 people, almost had as many people in my high school as they did at Xavier. So that sucked. Then I went to Coffeyville. Okay. And so just getting around more people was fun for me. So it's not so much, again, about being a big shot. I just like to me, it was the college atmosphere.
Right.
And you can't get a real college atmosphere being in your apartment or your dorm room taking classes. That's not the real college atmosphere. But kids are different these days, though, Fitz. Who knows?
They really are. I mean, these things have just changed how everyone perceives the world and interacts with the world, not as much face to face. I get that, but if you're going to be the new old school, in old school, you went to school. You got up and got out of bed and went. So I don't know. I always loved being on campus because, after a big game and I wrote a really good story, all the girls would come up to me and say, that was a really good story, because they flock to the journalists. They do.
They didn't flock to Big B. No way.
They did too. They loved Big B.
I mean, my wife may be watching, so I'll plead the fifth.
No more questions regarding that.
Yeah, no more questions.
I mean, yeah, I live here. I live alone in my Aggieville suite. I get out as much as I can. I still, to this day, I've been graduated since 2021. And during football season, I do this multiple times a week. I'll just go to the business building and work, type up my articles, and be around people. I think you would go insane if you sat in your apartment all day. Granted, these players have a fraternity around them with their teammates and coaches, but you got to get out.
The same though. That it's a different deal. Don't get me wrong. I love the camaraderie. I mean, some of the guys in the locker room are still my best friends to this very day, as almost 30 years ago. But there's a different element of campus people that you just, hey, what's going on? And hey, Mr. Ag guy, what's happening, man? My name's Brien. What's happening? It's just
Mr.
different
Ag guy.
Seeing guys, it's just different. Just seeing different people around, and saying hi to somebody who some of the people, they don't know who you are. Well, they didn't know who I was. I'm just walking around. I mean, they may have had an idea. There wasn't a ton of big black guys walking around on the Kansas State campus that didn't play athletics. But at the same time, it's just, hey, I don't know. It was just, to me, it was just fun being on campus and just seeing people and just having fun. It was real fun going to the student union and going bowling. To me, that was a great time because everybody's down there. You're having a good time. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Fitz, you said earlier that you were hinting at Jerome Tang. We want to move on from that chapter. And with Collin Klein, with football here, Chris Kleiman's seasons are going to roll into what's going on here. And so we're going to talk about that for years to come. And one thing that we saw last offseason with, Chris Kleiman was those spring practices and how he utilized it and conditioning, how he wanted his guys to last for a full season. I mean, you're not playing in Ireland in week 0. So this is a little different for Collin Klein, but he can approach this his own way.
Agreed. And by the way, I will have Chris Kleiman on a future Fighting Ever Fighting, maybe in April. I texted with him the other day. If you're interested, he said his first words were, I have no regrets. He is loving life right now. All the pressure's off. And I feel really good for him because there was concerns about his health. And I bet you he feels even more on vacation now that spring football's here and he doesn't have to worry about it. And I will be interested to see if spring football's done differently. What did Collin pick up from A&M that he might apply here? Is there anything? Obviously the morning practices are something different. That'll be a question we need to ask him on Wednesday. So someone remind me, because within the next 10 seconds, I'll forget. And I think he's going to approach this very businesslike. They have to start buttoning down some things and putting a lot of pressure on the players to pick things up. So I'm very excited to get to talk to Collin about the actual process of building this team now.
Yeah, I think that's important, is putting the chalkboard or the blackboard or the iPad work, whatever you want to call it these days. All that stuff is important, but you learn by doing. And you got to get out on the field and you got to put it in place. So the implementation aspect, like I said, if it's whatever you do it on in the meetings, that's one thing. You're never going to learn better than when you're out on the actual field. That's just the way it is. You're not going to learn better than actually going out there, making mistakes. I think that's a big part of it, is going through it and learning what not to do when you see certain situations. I know everybody always talks about, well, what should you do? And why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? And that's part of it. But the bigger piece to it is what not to do, because what not to do when you're on the defensive side of the ball, what not to do, that gives up touchdowns. That's so you got to learn how to do that, that aspect of it. Or as an offensive lineman, what not to do, you do this, that's a sack, or a tackle for loss. So I think a lot of this stuff is exciting just for the simple fact that they can get on the field and finally figure out who can really do what based on what we're asking them to do, but also implementing what we're wanting to do and really getting a jump start to it. It just seems to me like there's going to be a different, bigger, different kind of feel to what's going to go on in the locker room and on the practice field.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see or discuss with the coaches the building blocks on the defensive side of the ball. Jordan Peterson's made it very clear they're going to be multiple. They're going to come at you in different ways. So that adds layers of learning in there. But also the coaches need to find out, well, this guy's really good in this situation, so that they know to put him in that situation. Who's best on a 3-man front, 4-man front, linebackers in different situations. And that's all stuff that they're going to experiment with as they move through spring to get them ready to roll into fall practice when that time comes. They don't have much time. They just don't. You get 15 practices, Big B, in the spring. Mm-hmm. If you play a spring game, it's one of them, which is one of the reasons why I think spring games are dying. Coaches value the time. The NCAA rules have restricted so much practice time now. Big B, it'd feel like playing football at a country club compared to what Coach Snyder put you guys through.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was relentless. There was no rules on that. A big reason there are rules is Bill Snyder, because he knew to get to where the program, he wanted the program to go, was going to take something special. And that meant working harder than everyone else. And you guys did.
We did. It was, they had limitations on what you could and couldn't do. I said, but we stretched it, but it paid off. Like I said, we were in shell. When you talk about shells now, guys are in helmets. Yeah, and that's all they're in. Or they have those pads underneath. Like our shells were shoulder pads, helmets, shoulder pads, thigh pads. You just didn't have on knee pads and football pants. That was literally the only difference between a shells practice and a full padded practice with Coach Snyder, was literally football pants and knee pads. Everything else you had on. So, and you were expected to go full speed. There was no, hey, you're in shells, let's just thud up. No. There was none of that. We're going to go full speed. We're going to block everybody the way you're supposed to be blocked. We're going to run every route the way it's supposed to be, run. You're going to do everything full speed, but you're not going to have on knee pads. That's our shells. And it's going to be 3 hours. So it's just a different way of doing things, man. I would say this: practices now, though, Fitz, are more up tempo.
Yes.
Like we did things, and don't get me wrong, we worked hard in those things, but it wasn't as fast paced to this drill. We got there. Now things are a lot more fast paced. You get a lot more stuff in a less amount of time.
Right.
And you can say one way is better or another. I don't know. But I just know that we did it a lot longer, but you didn't get from drill to drill to drill to drill in 90 seconds. You weren't flying around doing all this stuff. If we were going to do a drill, we're there for 10 minutes, take a 2 or 3 minute little break, and then we go to the next one. It might be 15 minutes, that sort of thing. But that's the difference, where now you just speed pace, get through it all. And I'm assuming and I haven't been to a football practice in a long time. I talk to people that go all the time, and some of the things that get missed are maybe fundamentals.
Right.
And that is where we didn't do that. There was no missing of the fundamentals. Well, now maybe that's the thing that gets missed, because you can't miss team period. You got to get the team period in. So what's getting missed? might be that.
Yeah. Practice restrictions have caused this. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're lollygagging between stations, that's eating up practice time.
Correct.
And I think also coaches like the idea of players having to exert, energy, be focused, be upbeat, get going. I would think it would transfer to the field. I don't know that it did last season in particular, but again, how does Collin approach this with the fundamentals and those type of things? Because at times, I thought previous teams struggled with tackling. Well, you're not allowed to tackle that often anymore in practice, which seems like a silly thing. Like if the NCAA said, hey, you can have basketball practice, but you can only shoot the ball for 10 minutes a day. It just doesn't make sense to me. I know they worry about physicality and those type of things and injuries, but those were present before. I haven't noticed a drop in injuries because of stuff. I still see a lot of injuries. It's a contact sport.
Guys, we were talking earlier before we recorded about, like, in basketball, a dude getting on the court, he's going to get better. You learn by doing. And, Big B, you mentioned this a little bit ago that, Collin Klein is going to have to kind of just learn some stuff on the fly, and that's fine. But he's also learning from, some legendary coaches. He played under Bill Snyder, coached with Chris Kleiman, coached with Mike Elko. And so, yes, there's going to be a learning curve here, but he's got, obviously a great resume as a coordinator, as a player. But if he's a sponge and he just soaks in what he could when he was under some of those coaches, he's going to be just fine.
I think so too. My thing about it is that he played the quarterback position. There's not a lot of dummies running around playing the quarterback position, even in the dumbed down college football aspect of it. So Collin Klein's a smart guy, understands what he wanted to put in place. Also, another thing to keep in mind, he got the job because of what the offensive accrement that he had. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not running an offense at the age that he's running an offense, not knowing what you're doing. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's something that I think a lot of people, hey, he's a Kansas State legend. That's why he got the job. No, that's not why he got the job. Maybe that's a part of bringing him back, but that's not why he got the job. He got the job because he knew what the hell he was doing, putting together an offense and putting together an offensive staff. And also, I'm sure they interviewed him, and I'm sure he had to tell them what his plan was for building this program. I'm sure it wasn't just, hey, Collin, you played here. I know you could. Just come on back, man. Okay, just come. I'm sure they had a conversation on what your plan was, even if they didn't like it or even if it didn't make sense to them. I'm sure, or if they knew they were going to hire him regardless. I'm sure a conversation, at least I would hope so, that he had, hey, what are your plans? What are you going to do? What are we doing here to build this program? I'm sure that happened. He knew it. He probably laid it out for him. Oh, and by the way, laying it out for the building of a program is not a 5-minute conversation either. It was probably a 20 to 30-minute, this is my plan. This is what we're going to do on offense. This is what we're doing on defense. This is what we're doing on special teams. This is what we're doing with recruiting, transfer portal, all of it. And you got to take all of that into account. So, hell, it may not have been 30 minutes, Fitz. It may have been an hour and a half.
Yep.
Who knows how long? But I do know this, the more detail, the better you're prepared. And I'm pretty sure that Collin Klein was prepared. So, and especially if he took anything from Bill Snyder. If he took anything from Coach Snyder, then it was at least an hour conversation, minimum an hour conversation on what you were trying to do. And that may have been just for the offense.
How long was the conversation with Matthew Driscoll when they asked him to be the interim coach?
Well, he probably talked for 2 hours. No one was around. They all
he talked about Jerome Tang.
Yeah. But, Collin was never a superhuman athlete. Now, he was a warrior, and he was tough, hard-nosed, but he didn't get by just by his talent and running, juking by guys. There was a lot of meticulous plays that they ran, and, Fitz, you've outlined this much better than I ever did, but Bill Snyder's philosophy was, hey, we've got your worst player, right?
Yep.
Finding a way to expose that. So, if you can soak up what you did under Snyder, you're gonna be just fine.
I had an interesting conversation with Collin after his hiring. I had gone up to meet Trey Scott, the GM, because we've been in kind of same orbits, but never had met. And I stopped in and said hi to Collin. We had a little conversation. I sat down on the couch and we talked about that. And I'll be fascinated to see how much is very Snyder-esque in the presentation of the Kansas State football product. How much is Kleiman-esque? How much is Klein picked up from Elko or, his brief stop at Northern Iowa, other things that he's seen? We know that Collin kind of sponges up offensive schemes and plays. He's not ashamed to steal. No coach should be.
No.
That's how you kind of expand your playbook, is you learn from others. One of the topics though we discussed was, and this is kind of off topic, but I will be curious to see how Collin handles this, is the greatest confusing part of Bill Snyder philosophy. Brien Hanley, was Bill Snyder the ultimate control person? He wanted everything in line the way he wanted it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's 2nd and 6, and the snap count or the snap clock's at about 15 seconds. At that point, the ultimate control freak would turn it over to an 18 to 22-year-old person to read a defense and switch the play at the line of scrimmage. It always cracked me up. It's like he controls everything, but right before the snap, he puts the decision-making in the hands of a quarterback who's got to decide if we're going to run the run play or the pass play, because it'd come in tandem. And I'll be interested to see how Collin handles that. I think most coaches now are sending in the signals on the sideline, which, brings a moment of anxiousness that your signs have been hacked. You can now talk in people's ears. So I'll be very interested to see how he handles that, because for everything Snyder did, that was really effective, because there was no way to exactly understand what they were adjusting to at times. And there wasn't much time for the defense then to react with their own changes.
Well, part of that was, defense. Back when I played, things were just so much different.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot of times, even when we lined up 3 and 4 wide receivers, teams always seemed to find a way to get 7 guys in the box. So, depending on how many guys were in the box when you were playing, is, hey, if they got 8, we're running the ball a different way. Or if we got a pass play call, we don't have enough guys to protect, we got to run the option, right. And so it wasn't that difficult. Now things are so much difficult, and guys, you can get 5 guys in the box or 6 guys in the box, and they rotate coverages way more now in college football than what they ever did back in those days. I don't think anybody ever rolled any coverage. It's like, okay, this is what we're in. Now and that's it. We might stem a D line or something like that and blitz somebody, but everything is just so much more sophisticated. Well, one of the things that helps, Coach Snyder, we would get plays in and it would be late that we would get to the line of scrimmage. Now you want to get to the line of scrimmage as soon as humanly possible, even if you're going to use the entire play clock. I think that's what helps, Fitz, is getting to the line of scrimmage, calling a dummy play, and see what the defense does. Well, you also have a certain amount of time that you can talk into that headset. So you can still be at the line of scrimmage, and you can still be talking to them, because you're looking and you're like, well, wait a minute. They're in cover 3, but look at that safety. He's already backpedaling. They're going to roll into cover 2. Let's call this and see. So I think just some of that stuff that we just don't notice or we don't know, I think that has a lot to do with it, because football is played so much different than what it was in the late 90s. Up until about the mid 2000s, things are just so much different now. I think that's where Collin has I shouldn't say an advantage. Football's just played differently, and he'll do it differently, because you got to take advantage of those things these days.
I agree with all that. Yeah.
You believe Carl came in here and asked us a recruiting question when Cole wasn't a part of the show?
Yep. That's it. Yep. we've had coverage of that at GoPowercat. There's some names out there. They're looking at about 4 different guys right now. But I'm impressed that they kept the quarterback room together. So I think those young quarterbacks recognized, holy crap, we just got a Heisman finalist level quarterback as our coach. This is enormous. So really, I mean, we all know who the starting quarterback is going to be. There's no, you set aside experience, the coach and the player are on the same page. It's obvious who's going to be the starter, but quarterbacks get hurt. They get hurt often. Ask Texas Tech. And you better have someone ready to come in and be your number 2. So that's really going to be fascinating to watch these young quarterbacks go at it in the spring, because there's 3 guys, that maybe 4, that could be the number 2. And it kind of depends what Collin Klein wants from his quarterbacks, and that'll shake out, and we'll see some movement there. But those guys are all trying to position themselves. The heck with recruiting. I'm the next guy. And that's the attitude you got to have.
Absolutely.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So, and look at Blake Barnett, right? And obviously this is a question about recruiting, but who was recruited by Collin Klein from Colorado. So all these guys have something to bring to the table. But if I was a betting man, Blake Barnett is probably somebody that Collin is going to have some interest with moving forward after in a post Avery Johnson world at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's more of the physical runner, much different body type than Collin, because he's short and stout, like a little teapot. But he's got that same spirit of playing quarterback. I don't care if you're right, if you're standing in the hole, I'm going to run over you. We all understand Avery's a different type of athlete, different type of runner. He's not as physical, but he's a hell of a lot faster. So I think Collin, with his understanding of the quarterback run game, and it's not just a call to play for the quarterback to run, it's how it's blocked, how it's set up. And that was another topic of our discussion, that they weren't quite doing it right in the past. And that's why the quarterback run game never really took off. So there's going to be some new old philosophies with the quarterback run game put in. And I think it does lend itself to Blake Barnett quite well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. But to talk about the quarterbacks, K-State needs a good backup, and I don't think we've really had one the last couple of years. Fitz and Gills, I think that's been part of it, is that K-State just hasn't had a good backup quarterback. I think that we're going to go into this season. I think the quarterbacks are going to be a lot better. I've said this. I said it at the time when he got hired. I said I'll continue to say this. There was no reason for quarterbacks to be leaving, because what you're going to go look for came to Kansas State.
Right.
Other than playing time, don't get me wrong, playing time, something different. But if you're looking for a place where you can get developed and be a better quarterback, why would you leave Kansas State? What you're literally going to look for is coming to you. You might as well stay. That's why when everybody talked about, well, will Avery leave or will he go? I had no worries, because I'm like, well, what's he going to look for? He's already the starting quarterback. He makes good money. What else are you going to look for? Somebody that's going to develop somebody? Well, that's coming to you. So there's no reason to leave.
Yep.
And the same with these other quarterbacks. Collin Klein is going to develop these guys. But also this, me, if they're not ready to be developed, he's going to find the guys that can be. I have no worries about that.
I will say, the 3 of us, we were all in Boulder 2024. I don't think K-State wins that game if Taquan Roberson doesn't come in. I think he had like 3 passes, but they were big. And
yeah,
that's true.
To Collin Klein, or excuse me, Chris Kleiman's credit, they did have a good backup for a couple snaps in 2024. I'll give them that.
Yeah, the portal won that game. It really did. They did a good job identifying a quarterback who was at a skill set that could come in and play. Short notice, he had experience. Even if he wasn't perceived as being a starter quality, up for the start. I think if he'd had an injury, Avery had an injury where he couldn't have started a game, I think they felt good about that. And maybe they didn't feel that way last year. We just didn't see much of the other quarterbacks other than Barnett on those what became incredibly predictable quarterback run plays. And but I think in really good shape for the future at quarterback, particularly when you layer in the recruiting that they're doing. Players, young quarterbacks are going to want to play for Collin Klein. And I also recognize this. When he was a Heisman finalist, these guys weren't in school. I mean, they were in preschool.
Correct.
But just as when we were growing up, we knew quarterbacks from well before we had seen them, but we knew of their legacy and everything. And now with YouTube and highlights that we didn't have when we were young, they can all catch up pretty quick and see what kind of warrior they're playing for. I'm really excited about the future of K-State quarterbacks.
If you guys have anything to say about special teams, feel free. I will give you 2 words. Stanton Weber, I'm sold. I fully believe it's going to get back to where it needs to be at Kansas State. You guys have any disagreement in that?
No, it is going to be a point of pride again. As much as I love Chris Kleiman, I don't think he ever understood the importance of special teams at Kansas State. I don't think he fully grasped it. And I think you can probably point to a number of games that they probably would have won if they'd been able to make a special teams play. They're just, you lose based on one play, and the other team was getting it. Collin gets that, and Stanton certainly gets that. So if given the time by the head coach, he's going to have special teams ready to go. That I feel good about. Gills, how much did I bitch about special teams last year?
A lot.
I was just shaking my head most of the games with special teams play.
Rightfully so, though.
Yeah, it was a disaster. There wasn't attention to detail. There wasn't a feel for the game. I was really disappointed in the former coach there.
That was the thing, and I know we've covered it before, but when Coach Snyder was here, I know we keep going back to that, but it's just the truth, is that he put an emphasis on special teams because K-State didn't have an advantage, not schematically, they didn't have the players. So you got to find a way early on when he was there. You had to find a way to try to get some sort of advantage. And that was putting starters on special teams when other schools weren't. Well, when Kansas State did have the players, he continued to do the exact same thing and kept frontline guys on special teams. And that's why K-State special teams were very good, is because he identified that so early on. He's like, we got to find an advantage somewhere. And they did it, and he never stopped doing that. That became a lost art at Kansas State. They didn't do that. I mean, look, God bless a lot of walk-ons, don't get me wrong, but frontline guys are there for a reason. And you got to put some of those guys on your special teams. They have to do it in the National Football League because of numbers, but in college football, you do it because you're trying to get an advantage. That's the difference. In any way you can get an advantage, you got to be willing to do that. And I just don't think the previous staff, I just don't think they emphasized it enough to take advantage of that. And you're right, Fitz. I think it probably cost them a few games.
Yep. I'm confident of it. And granted, special teams are different. They've watered down kick returns, and they've just made it more difficult to make special teams a priority. And I also think that coaches are more sophisticated in some areas of special teams, particularly like punt protection has changed greatly. And, now you got the rollout Aussie punters that didn't really exist back in the 80s and 90s. So the game has changed, but you can't be making mistakes in special teams.
Nope.
You can't, because that is a net negative that makes it difficult to win. And I know this because I watched Kansas State do that to many opponents who made a mistake in special teams and ended up losing a 1-score game.
Yep.
It's one thing to not get the splash, but when you have it be a true negative and you only have bad things stem from special teams, that's where your problems come from.
Yep.
Guys, did you do anything other than watch basketball from what was that, Thursday at 11 a.m.?
No.
That's all I've been doing.
My waking hours are mostly watching basketball. And let's be honest, I don't have that many waking hours. But I did watch a lot of basketball.
Napping hours.
I'm good. I'm a good napper. It's on my resume. If I ever need a napping job, I'm set. But no, I was a little disappointed in the Big 12. But then again, other than Kansas, it follows seeds. It did.
And St. John's to be a 5 seed.
Not BYU.
Oh, that's true. BYU. But
BYU was at a disadvantage. And if we're being honest, BYU didn't deserve a 6 seed either.
I agree with you.
If they took that based on what they had done all year, including early in the season, and didn't take into account Richie Saunders getting hurt. If they had done that like they do other teams, BYU was a 10 seed at best.
I find the seeding in that East region, isn't that where Kansas was?
Yeah.
Which explains why they were playing in San Diego.
Jiminy Christmas. That was crazy.
I don't understand the seedings of that bracket at all. Kansas should not have been seated ahead of St. John's, at least from my observations. And I thought St. John's should have been at the very least a 3 seed, if not a 2. Maybe it'd been difficult to find space at the 2 line, but a 5. What was that committee doing? I truly believe they had to move them around to not be in a bracket with another Big East team. So they slid them down. They probably had them at 4 and put them at 5. I think you can make an argument that just within that bracket alone, Kansas should have been the 5 and St. John's the 4, because Kansas has had some bad spells. But that game kind of went how I thought it would, and the fact that it ended up being close. Kansas had to climb back into it, but I thought St. John's was the better team. And Big B, if I'm correct, you have them as the Final Four team in the East region.
I sure do. Yep. St. John's was woefully underrated. Yep. And again, Fitz, it would make sense what you said as far as they couldn't find another region because they had Big East. They didn't want to play. Well, first of all, they are in the same region as UConn.
Yep.
That's number one. So they're going to play in a regional final if that happens. Number 2, there was only 3 Big East teams that even made the damn tournament. You're telling me you can't find another place to put them?
All that made it out of the Big East?
3. It's not like they had 10 or 12. They had 3 teams, and you couldn't find another region to put St. John's at a number 3 or 4 seed. Give me a break. What are we doing?
Yeah, I guess the committee decided they had a lot of wins against teams that weren't good enough to play in the tournament.
And that could have been. That could have been it.
Yeah, I was just looking. St. John's is 5-5, quadrant 1 games, and Kansas was 9-9. So if that has any impact or not, they're both 500. But I guess Kansas maybe they won more games against good teams in the Big 12. But Kansas also lost 4 or 5 more games this season than St. John's. So yeah, it didn't make much sense to me either. Guys, Texas and I guess Iowa, right? Those are the 2 kind of Cinderellas we have at this point. Yep. I know High Point won a game, but I want to touch on Iowa. And I talked about this. This has been something we've mentioned on GoPowercat. And you obviously have Ben McCollum come in here and bring his players from a Missouri Valley school. I'm not saying that Casey Alexander has to go beat a number 1 seed in his region in year number 1, but Big B and Fitz, why can't he do that? Ben McCollum, a guy who's going to bring his players. I'm not saying you have to be upset with Casey Alexander if there is no instant success in year 1, because when the hire was first made, okay, give him time. He needs to build a foundation, build this culture, stabilize the program. That's going to take years. Everybody can get behind that. But when you're going to bring your players and you're going to bring your coaching staff, you can utilize the portal to your advantage. You can eye that talent, develop a guy who maybe needs some work. I see no reasons why you can't. And this is not just Iowa this season, okay? Ben McCollum made that jump from Division II, and what was it, a 6-11 game? They beat Mizzou at Drake his first season. So I don't see why there's any reason you can't go dancing and be that UCF, that TCU team, middle of the pack, Big 12, win the games you have to win, and be an 8-9 game. I don't see why that can't be something he can do in your number 1. And that's, I'll let you guys go. But when the hire was first made, it was okay, give him time. But after you see what's going on here and you think about it, okay, this is college basketball in the portal era. You've got to be good year after year.
Well, I'll say this. I'm going to caution people to be patient, because what Ben McCollum's done is incredible. He's an amazing coach. And I think the message here is that there's great coaches at D2. They might be coaching players of a lesser talent level, but what they coach is applicable to all levels. And he's very, that's 100%. I mean, he was amazing at Northwest Missouri State. And, you know, Casey Alexander's never really spent time at the D2. And he's been at some smaller programs, but all indications are he is an X's and O's driven coach. And we'll see how he translates that. But in terms of immediately building the team, the transfer portal is amazing for coaches coming in from another program, not because they get to bring players, they get to bring their culture. They get to bring everything that team was off the court, because that's a big part of any success of any team. And if you can just pour that into a new locker room and hit the reset on the program and pick up, you know, and you got enough guys that are sharing how to do things and what coach expects and all those things, and you already have this kind of interaction going in your locker room, it really does give it an advantage. We saw Kurt Cinetti do it with football, for heaven's sakes. You know, brings in 20-some players from James Madison or whatever the number was. You're not just bringing in the talent. You're bringing in players who understand what you want and what they need to do. And then they can communicate that to everyone else. So that's the big advantage, is you get to have more knowns now with the new team than ever before, because you know the players you're bringing with you. And I think it does give him an advantage, but he's also never gone shopping in the portal. Maybe they did at lower levels, but that will be an interesting thing for them to encounter. And hopefully they don't think just paying the most money is the best idea.
Big B?
You can build your team. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. You can build a team that can win. Now, building, you know, a stable program is going to take time. You know, again, you got to build your culture, but we see it at countless places across the country where a team, they fire the coach because they weren't good. The very next year, they're in the tournament or they're good. So I'm not saying that the only way that the K-State program next year, they got to make the tournament, otherwise it's a failure. But I also believe that if they do make the tournament, okay, I wouldn't put any limitations on what the expectation should be, if that makes sense. I think K-State, if you build it and you bring your culture and it's the right culture, I think it's fine. One thing I want to come across, you know, last week we talked about Casey Alexander, and I think it's a good conversation, guys, about his lack of tournament experience or success, right, and even making the tournament. Well, I think a product of that is being in a one-bid league. You come to Kansas State and you win 23 games, more than likely you're making the tournament. And you, at 23 wins, I'm sorry, you're not winning the Big 12 at 23 wins. More than likely you got 10 losses or close to it, somewhere around there. So you're not going to win the league, but you'll get in the tournament. That's what I'm talking about. So, and then you get into the tournament and you win a game or two. Well, that can happen. You're not doing that at Belmont, man. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen. So if you don't win the conference tournament and you don't get in, that doesn't mean that your team was bad or you had a bad team or anything like that, or you're a bad coach. It just means your players didn't play the best one night. You got beat. You didn't make the tournament. At Kansas State, you have more options. You have more opportunities. And I think sometimes when fans look at that, and maybe that's a negative that they talk about, and it's legitimate conversation, but you got to put it into context. And the proper context would be is that you'll have more opportunity at a school like Kansas State to get into the tournament versus just one opportunity. That's it. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament. How many times have we seen the best team doesn't always win? Doesn't matter, but you just have to be the best team that day. So, but I wouldn't put any limitations. And actually, I would say yes, they can make the tournament. Maybe if you want to say you expect them to do it, I think that's tough. because of where the program currently is right now. I think you got to take that into consideration. I know a lot of K-State fans may not want to look at it that way, but the program's in bad shape. It's got to get a pulse back. And if he could just do that the first year, I'd be happy. Just get a pulse back into us, the fan base, and in the program in itself.
Two things can be true, though. You can build a program for the future and get younger guys while winning now and grabbing a senior who's
100%.
not gonna with 1 year of eligibility left, who's gonna jeopardize anything in the future. So I get that, and it'd be a lot more alarming if Kansas State had hired a coach who goes to the tournament every single season and gets bounced in the first round. My biggest thing with Casey Alexander is he has a lot of stuff that he still needs to prove. There's some boxes that maybe still need to be checked, right? Winning those games in March. He still needs to prove that he can keep guys. Now, in Manhattan, it's going to be a lot easier. You've got a lot more resources, but doesn't mean he hasn't proven it yet. He still has to prove he can do some of these things. And so winning in March, is up there, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than, he goes to the tournament every year and he's proven he can't win the games at that point if he always loses. And so, glass half full, Big B, it's not fair to judge a coach off of just one bad game in March. Now, those are still bad games, and these are the games that matter. And so at Kansas State, if you go out and you're an 8-9, whatever seed you are, doesn't matter, and you lose your first game in March Madness, the uproar from the fan base, if that happens year after year, that's where you're going to have some real trouble. But right now, it's just an unproven thing that I think any sane person should give him the opportunity to go prove. My biggest argument has been he still has to prove some stuff in Manhattan.
No, he definitely does. But the only pushback I would say is that at Belmont, he's always outnumbered. He's always outmanned when you get into the tournament. That's not going to be the case at Kansas State. So if he comes to Kansas State and he always loses in the first round of the tournament, that's a different conversation than losing every year at Belmont.
Yeah.
Correct. And, the way the portals changed the tournament, I thought would hurt viewership. Big B, you sent me some numbers today. Viewership's up with the tournament. Yeah. It's amazing. But they have kind of insulated the Cinderella effect quite a bit because the portal just makes the talent difference too much. A team like High Point, which is, I think High Point can be a Gonzaga with their resources. I didn't know anything about High Point, and I now know I probably should have gone there on scholarship.
That place is amazing. That campus is amazing, Fitz.
$80,000 a year.
Yes.
But it's like a country club with like chefs.
It's High Point.
Hell, it's it makes TCU look like it's full of the pores.
Man.
But I'm in all seriousness, they have a situation there where they could build a program like Gonzaga. Mm-hmm. They have the resources. They will have the money to keep players. They will have money to get players out of the portal. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what conference they play in. That's how little I know about High Point. But those stories are diminished now. Now we're being sold that Texas is a Cinderella. I kind of went around a little bit with a national writer who implied that, and I'm like, there's no world in which Texas is a Cinderella. They own the damn castle.
Yes.
That's not how it works. Sure, it's a cool story. They're overachieving for what they did during the year, but they have the dudes. They've got the athletes to compete with other people. The smaller schools now just don't have enough dudes. They've been watered down every year. Oh, look at that guy. He's really going to be good. He's a freshman there. Let's bring him in. And, a couple of years will be good. They don't get to keep their good players. They lose them on an annual basis, and it's almost impossible now for those programs. So we're seeing coaches reluctantly, I believe, not just going up for the money, but to go up to be more competitive, to have a deck of cards that isn't stacked against you from the opening tip of the season.
That was a good analogy. That was almost as good as Cole's from last Monday.
Yeah, if the shoe fits, put it on your foot, or what was it? If the shoe fits,
it's your shoe.
It's your shoe.
I remember he said that, and I was like, do people say that? I was like, I don't remember people saying that. I don't think I'd ever heard that before. I was just like, huh. Okay. The
He
shoe
wrecks
fits,
a metaphor about once a year.
nobody else can wear the same size shoe as you, I guess.
As I
Wild.
attempt to steer this ship
Yeah.
back on track, a couple of
Yes.
guys I would watch with Alexander here, having genuine, real interest, and more important, I guess, mutual interest would be Taj Manning and David Castillo and Andre Kostic. Now, Fitz, there's these things called cell phones now. And when Casey Alexander took over, right, he was coming back and forth to Manhattan. By the time you're watching this is the first day back for students, if they're in-person classes, from spring break. So guys were gone for the last week. Alexander was back and forth. And so in-person, discussions are going to start ramping up here, if not already. But yeah, some guys have been in touch with Coach. And, like I said, Bashir and Castillo and Manning are really the three.
Hold on, Bashir or Kostic?
Yeah.
Kostic,
Castillo, Manning.
I'm a little surprised Bashir isn't on that list.
Yeah, well, if Belmont, if Casey Alexander wants to keep, let's say 3-4 players that are going to come follow him, there's only so many.
It's true.
Tangible pieces of that pie in terms of minutes to go around, and who knows if Castillo and Manning and Kostic. If these three guys, if you blend that together, I mean, you've got a good foundation there that, what? And you look at some of the deficiencies and, respectfully in Abdi Bashir's game, I'm just not sure how much value Alexander would put on that. Now, this is just total speculation and reporting aside for somebody who definitely values offense more than defense, but does admit, and, he has the knowledge that, hey, you've got to be good on both ends. Doesn't mean you have to be great on both ends, but you got to have your bread, get buttered on offense, and still be respectable defensively. I just don't think Abdi, really fits what Alexander would want. Again, that's just me speculating, but
yeah,
those other three, there's interest.
I look at Kostic and I see physically a complete player. He can be. Abdi Bashir is just not very big. He's rail thin. He's never going to be a physical defender. Andre's capable of that. He's capable of being a complete player. He just hasn't been taught those things. I'm going to say something now that'll anger some K-State fans, but I feel like Andre Kostic is the type of player Bill Self got a hold of. He'd be in the NBA because he's refined players like that, to edit their game and add this and do that. And there is a huge upside to Andre Kostic. So I see it. They had a lot of money invested in him, and you're under the belief, Gills, that he just intensely likes it in Manhattan. And maybe they can keep him. But I think those are the two guys are culture pickups. They're guys that do it right. And that's what this coaching staff is going to be about. And then Kostic has just got such a high upside. You can't pass on him if you can keep him.
Yeah. And Abdi Bashir was, I would venture to say, maybe more of a Tang guy,
right,
for lack of a better term. And
right.
Not that Andre Kostic wasn't, not that these guys didn't respect their coach, but Kostic came over from Serbia, right? Abdi, you saw him he was with the scout. He was the scout team coach for that one game where they didn't coach. We don't need to go down that road. But with Kostic, man,
and the players coached and did better than the coaches.
Yes. I was going to say something about Kostic. I can't remember. Go ahead.
But Big B, do you think basketball players in particular, because that's a small locker room, with the transfer portal, again, I don't feel like they have the connection to the school. And I don't feel like most of these players think they owe Casey Alexander any kind of explanation. They don't want to talk to him. They're leaving. They're for sale. They're a house on the market. And they don't need to know anything about what he's saying. They know the money's not going to be the same. They came here for the money. That was the highest bid. It's not going to be the highest bid. I want those guys to leave.
Yeah.
That's been part of the problem. They're only here for the money.
Yep.
Bye.
And that's the thing is it would be fine if you came for the money if there was a culture in place. But because there was no culture in place, then because there's other places that pay a lot of money, but they got something that they're playing for. That wasn't the case at Kansas State. So it became literally the only reason that you came to Kansas State was about cash. If you can't make it, for instance, and I hate Kentucky. Let's just throw it out there. Okay. Every sense of being, I hate Kentucky.
Thank you, Iowa State.
Oh, man, thank you. But Kentucky has Kentucky. They paid more money than Kansas State did, and guys went to Kentucky for cash. But there's Kentucky. That's why they went there. So if there was that at K-State, you could live with guys making decisions based on money because there was something else. Because even though I despise that school, those kids are playing for that university. They are enthralled in the University of Kentucky. Same way with Louisville, Indiana. A lot of these now you could say because they're blue bloods, but there's places that aren't like that, like Iowa State. Now, I don't know what Iowa State's budget is by any means. And I'm not saying that it may not have even been as high as Kansas State's. But let's just say it was. Do you think that those kids that we watched yesterday play basketball are not playing for that university?
Oh,
they absolutely are. Absolutely. So you're never going to be able to convince me of that. You know, another school that was like that, I know we get mad at them as far as football, even at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, those basketball players, they love that coach. They love him. Now, they get paid a ton of money, but they love playing because, and you can tell because he gets right in their face, screams, and probably calls them everything under the sun, and they respond. So it can be done by all means. It just wasn't that way. So, Fitz, you're right. You're 100% right. We didn't have that. It was all about money, and you're correct. The guys that are here, do you want them? Probably not. I would say the majority of them that you don't. You could keep a couple if you want, but you know what? They're not going to be given anything. Like, you're not going to be gifted playing time just because you stayed. I mean, if you want to stay and we want you, great, but you're going to have to earn it because there's a new train coming to town and you can get on. We want you to get on. But if you do, this is the way it's going to be done. And I'm all for it because we have talked about it over and over again. And an identity of the program has to be rebuilt because we haven't had one in such a long time. And it's ridiculous that there wasn't one. But whatever. Don't care anymore. It's time to move on.
You got called out, man.
I mean,
you got called out.
Well, I mean, is Louisville not a list of those schools that pays a bunch of money? I mean, or you could also say Louisville was one of those schools that they sucked. They brought in a culture and they improved their win total by 20 games in 1 year.
That's actually that's as good a comparison as anything.
I mean,
they
won 8 games. The next year they won 28. So there's that.
Yep. I like that comparison because there were some similarities. There's a guy became head coach that didn't really understand how to be a head coach. X's and O's or managing a program. And it just deteriorated.
Remind me.
Yeah, I did. I need to see you struggle with pain.
But again, another similarity, they brought in a guy from College of Charleston. Hadn't won a tournament game. Hadn't had any success in the tournament. Turned the program completely around. He brought in a culture. Guys want to come and play for that culture, play for that system. Now, it's Louisville, so it's different. Right. And they got a lot of money. But at the same time, K-State, I'm not saying you need to copy what Louisville did, but you can. I mean, it's not a bad thing to copy. You brought a guy in from a mid-major school, and I would say College of Charleston, Belmont, maybe Belmont's got a little bit more cachet. I don't know. Pretty damn close, but no tournament success. Brought that guy in, built the culture in 1 year, and voila, there you go. Because people want to come and play for that.
Yeah, they do. Gills, before we close up shop, my wish for Kansas State basketball is kind of a new look, feel, reinvention. I think the only way to properly do that, Gills, is with the glass court. And put that in. But I think K-State should give the iPad that controls it to my guy Gunner, who has the PowerCat sport coat on the front row of the student section, put the student section in charge of the court. And I think the FKU chant will get a whole new life if they can put it on the court.
Well, the court, you could do that.
What?
You can do that for a couple games, and then you got to go back to the hardwood court.
Okay.
Because
they slipped on the hardwood court. I want to point that out. Maybe it was a humidity issue, not the glass court.
Maybe Gilbert, it was because Gilbert was there. It's too hot.
I know.
Too much. And Big B and Gilbert were both there.
Yep. That just really turns up the humidity.
It really
Glass
created
court
for a
was
hot atmosphere.
awful. It was
Huh?
awful.
It was really cool, except to play on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It looked amazing. It could do amazing things, except the one thing it was supposed to do, be a playing surface.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not
I had the
good.
video I posted of Taj. It went kind of made its runs around social media with Taj was like, if you want my honest opinion, no, this thing sucks. And he was one of the first to kind of speak up with his displeasure. And then it feels like it kind of mounted and snowballed because what was it? The semifinal game they went to back to the hardwood.
Yep.
Okay. So a couple things I want to, wrap up with.
Good.
There's a reason that PJ Haggerty was not one of those guys that we
No.
mentioned. And if Coleman Hawkins had eligibility, he would not be even a thought. And that's not a knock on them. They got their money. That's awesome. But you go to the highest bidder, at that point in your career, you're bouncing around. PJ Haggerty is going to be at a new school yet again, his 5th school in 5 years. It's
What a
TCU,
miserable
Tulsa,
experience.
Memphis, K-State, wherever he ends up.
You never went to college, man.
Nope.
You were a vagabond basketball player, and you're going to leave this 5-year college experience with nothing close to a degree. And I got news for you, kid. You ain't playing in the NBA with the game as it is now.
Mm-mm.
It's a 3-point shooting game, and you look like you're shot putting it from there.
He's
You
not
make it.
athletic enough. to
No,
play
he's
in the
not
NBA.
athletic
Not
enough.
at that position.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't fit the culture I'm confident Casey Alexander wants to build. And because I think it's going to be about 5 guys that are going to play for each other, not for themselves. And PJ wasn't overbearing with that, but it was obvious. He was really interested in his points.
I think it was how you've said it before, Fitz. I just think that's how he was raised to play basketball.
Right.
Like he was always the best guy, and he probably played on a lot of good teams or a lot of teams where the other parts weren't very good. And he had to be the guy. And so he had to do it all. And then when you get to play around other good teams, like he did that at Memphis, that Memphis team was pretty damn good last year. Now they lost in the tournament because a guy didn't play, but they were pretty good. But I don't know. It just at K-State, he was like, okay, I'm reverting back to what I've always done. Nobody else is very good, so I'm just going to do everything. And I don't think that was the case. I think he could have deferred a little bit more than what he did.
Totally.
All right. Maybe next week, the viewers of this Insider show will be, I guess, what's the word? Gifted.
Nathan?
Cole Carmody once again.
Oh, gifted Cole Carmody. I thought
It's not the same without him.
it's lacking metaphors. That
You had one about the deck was shuffled not in their favor. That was good.
Yeah. Well, I know you love poker.
Well,
I do love some poker.
If you're speaking those words, it must be you speaking in the words of Cole Carmody.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.